It's 9 o'clock, the top of the hour now. So I thought maybe we could just go around and say where we are and say our names.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, everybody.
And hi, Joan. And Jen, is there anything else you wanted to do? This is our first meeting. We're going to be pretty casual, just to orient and get our group think together about how we can be in this meeting. I wanted to just say it's very exciting because oftentimes we have Jen in the midst of some other conference. And this time, the focus really is on the gift economy, and Jen's theory, and how she can get a chance to discuss the things that she would like to discuss. So that's what we look forward to on every Wednesday for a while. And I think, we don't need to be so formal, but if we do get unruly, we might have to actually start stacking where people aren't talking over each other. But for now, how about if I just turn it over to Jen, and I'll be the one who'll do a little corralling if it's necessary, but I doubt that.
Well,
So Jen, where would you like us to go?
I think we should start out by just saying who we are and where we are, right? And maybe, didn't you say, Letitia, that we should have a word? Each one should just say something?
Yeah. And here's another thing, just for some logistics. In my past meetings, one of the things that has been very helpful a lot of times is that if you're not speaking, to mute yourself, because it takes up resources from our Zoom room. So if you don't know how to do that, in the bottom left-hand corner, if you're on a computer, is the mute button. And you click it, an arrow through it. If you're on an iPad like Frida, you have to tap the screen and your buttons actually pop out, and you'll be able to manage that. And that's where you'll find the mute button. You can turn off your camera if you need to also. You can also use the chat at the bottom. If you need to send something to the group, send it to everyone. Or if there's an individual, I'm Letitia, and if you have something specific to me that you want about, getting mentioned or helping you to be able to talk, because there's so many excited women who want to talk about whatever we're going to be talking about, you can send a chat to me directly. It also tells you we have 22 women with us right now, and there may be more coming on. So, in Sherman Oaks, California, in the USA, and I'm excited. And I'm going to turn it over to Diane, who, if you have any technical problems, Diane can help you.
Yes, I'm Diane. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm also very excited. Anyone who has any issues can message me in the chat box, and I'll try and help you out. But so far, it looks like everyone's good. If we're getting feedback from someone's microphone as they're listening, I might, if it's still on, I might turn it off for them. But so far, I'm not hearing anything. So I'm going to turn it over to Angela.
Okay. Oh, hello.
Hello.
I am Angela.
There's
Dolmich.
On mute. Okay. Yeah.
There's two Angelas.
Oh, I thought it was maybe going this way.
Okay.
Are different in different orders. I'm going to turn it over to Angela in Colombia.
Okay. So I am Angela Dolmich in Colombia, and well, I've been working a lot on the gift economy, and we have in Achira Eco Village, which is a product of the gift economy.
Angela, send it over to someone else.
I send it over to, oh, uh, mm, to you, to Leticia.
Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Jen.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Jen. I'm in Italy. I'm so pleased and happy to see all of you. And I can't wait for the discussion.
Pass it off to someone,
And I'll
Jen.
pass it on to Mickey.
Hi, I am Mickey. I'm temporarily in lockdown in Glasgow. I'm excited to be here and I want us to be brief so we can actually have a discussion.
In
Pass it
Glasgow, Scotland? Oh.
Pass it on to somebody, Mickey.
Yes, the other Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela in Toronto. I have a very poor memory, a really bad short-term memory. Going back and forth and not doing it in some kind of order, I certainly won't know when we get to the point where we're all introduced. You know, and my question is, you said there's 22 people on here. Are a lot of them, should I have 22 pictures in front of me?
There's a screen that rolls. You'll see an arrow at the side of your screen. It says 1 of 2. And when you hit the button, you'll see the other face.
Okay, I should do training. I've done Zoom, but not with so many people. So
There's also 2 views. One is speaker view and one is gallery view. I believe it's in the top right corner. If you're only seeing 1 or 2 people, you might be in speaker view, but if you switch to gallery, you'll see it.
Wow, yeah, I feel with that. Listen, thanks a lot. I just think, you know, self-organizing at this point isn't going to work because I'm technically not able to pass it on to people or do anything. I just want to sit and listen and maybe say something and push the auto mute on and off. So is
Angela, you can see somebody's name at the bottom of the screen and just name them.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, I'd like to hear Jen a little bit. Just
trying to pass it on to the next person so we're all introduced now.
Leticia, my proposal is you just call on people in the order that you have them on your screen.
Good.
We are losing a lot of time from people not understanding what they're being asked to do. And I am so eager for us to actually focus on the paper and not on these introductions. So I think if you just go by the order, it will go faster.
So that everybody orients, and Jen isn't going to, we'll see what Jen has to offer. And if it's fine with everyone, then I will just name people as I see them on the screen. So Liliana.
Where is Liliana?
I'm Liliana Wilson, and I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm originally from Chile, and I'm a visual artist. And I can't wait to hear Jen talking about what money does to our minds.
Mary Claire. You're on mute, Mary Claire.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Mary Claire, and I am at the Sekhmet Temple, founded and funded by Genevieve in Cactus Springs, Nevada. A distinct honor to be here. And my word is enchanting.
Martis.
Marites. So I am in Toronto. I'm a student here, work with Angela Miles. And I won't say anything more because I know you all want to get on to hear what Jen has to say. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Joan Chacon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joan Sishan. I'm in Chicago, and I'm very happy to be with you all and with Jen.
Constance.
Hi, I'm Constance Tippett. I'm an artist. I'm in Portland, Oregon. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Francesca?
I'm Francesca. I'm from Italy, Rome, in the countryside, and I'm very happy to be here with you all. Thank you.
Leah?
Can't hear you.
Hi, Leah here from Ireland. Tell you more about myself another time. It's a long story.
Frida?
Okay, I'm Frida. I'm on Denman Island, British Columbia, and looking forward to the discussion.
Joan Marler?
Hi, everybody. I'm Joan. I'm in Sebastopol, Northern California, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And it's such a pleasure to know that we have this community and I want to thank Genevieve for bringing us all together to discuss this very important subject.
Thanks, Joan. Sherry Mitchell?
Kwe Agwanude, hello. I am in Panawapskawi in Chquabenakiek territory in the northeastern United States, and I am very happy to see you all, to hear you speak your names, to recognize your value and importance, and also to hear Jen speak about the paper. So, thank you.
Adriana?
Hi, I'm Adriana from El Cerrito, California. I'm new to this community and I'm just excited to learn. So my word, I think, today is opening.
Beautiful. Judith?
I'm Judith. I'm in Ontario, in Ottawa, and I'm looking forward.
Thanks, Judith. Vanessa?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Lamort from Las Vegas, Nevada, affiliated with the Sekhmet Temple. And I'm very thankful, Letitia, for this introduction because it's orienting all of our faces and our voices. And yes, very eager and excited to hear what you have to say, Jen, around what gift economy is, gift culture is, and around how it's all going to unfold. I would say my word is unfolding. Thank you.
Beautiful. Maria Luisa?
Hi, I'm Maria Luisa from Italy. I usually live in Rome, but now I'm in my country region, in the Marche. I'm very happy to be here and to listen and to discuss the very interesting papers received by Jen. Thank you.
Beautiful. Laura?
Right. Okay. Hello, I'm Laura. I'm in Italy. I'm in Rome at the Women Building. I'm glad to see you all. Some of you I already know. And thank you, Jen.
Mary Condren?
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm from Ireland, and it's not 9 o'clock here. It's 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So very glad to be here and to hear what everybody has to say.
Perfect. And we're back to you, Jen. Welcome,
Okay.
everyone.
Has everybody introduced herself?
Yes.
I don't know if you want to have me introduced.
Oh, Anine. Yes.
Anine didn't get introduced. That's what I was thinking.
I want to represent my country. Hold on. I'm here at the sea, at the North Sea in The Hague, south of The Hague, and I am really very happy to see some old familiar faces. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Okay. Well, I sent you all this paper, and I think what I'll just start out saying, what I started out with the paper, is that I think we really need to be very radical about the alternative that we're going to give to the patriarchal economy, academic world, and everything. And it, to find a way that is consistent and explains things better than they do, with answering questions that they ask in order to convince people that there is another way, and that way belongs to women mostly. It belongs to women because women are mostly the mothers, although there are men who do mothering, and there are also whole villages and various family members, and sometimes, you know, people have several mothers. And there are societies that are based around mothering, where mothering is not difficult as it is in capitalist patriarchy, which our market society creates the scarcity that makes mothering difficult. And the values of patriarchy and capitalism together are what are destroying the world and keeping the gift economy from happening, and keeping women who have women's values, who have these nurturing values, out of the positions of authority. It's a question of what we really need is a general theory of the gift economy that's convincing, that people can locate their own practice inside of. So mothers need to be able to generalize their practice and see it inside of a larger story. But the same goes with environmental projects, with peace activism, with anti-racism. All the different kinds of activism are satisfying needs and trying to give gifts, social gifts. So if they can be connected with each other according to that network of links, it would allow people to think together instead of competitively. That is, nobody would be defending their own territory against the other, at least at that level, because people would have a similar theory of the way the world works and where we're coming from. And I think that is what made indigenous societies work so much better than our society works, is because they did have or do still, the surviving ones, still have a sense of a mothering community rather than a competitive, patriarchal, exchange-based community. And we have, you know, as I've said many times, and you all probably know, we have two ways of doing things in our society and our economy. And one is based on gift giving that we learn as children according to the model of the person that's nurturing us. And that continues throughout life in many ways. And I have tried to derive a theory of language from that, as well as a lot of other interactive theories. And actually, as I say in my paper, I think, and this is where I'm very, you know, making a big, scary leap, and maybe it's not true, but I think everything can be explained on the model of mothering, and not only like the model of mothering in language, and then the giving and receiving, and then you give to another level from the material level to the verbal level. So it's a change of levels that happens also in exchange. And so from that, then you go from the let's say the variations on gifting to other types of explanations, but they still can be traced back to an origin in that giving and receiving interaction. And it's because we've gotten so far away from that in the way we explain the world that we don't understand who we are as a species and what we ought to be doing. And we've been destroying the environment around us. So, and each other, and we've been destroying each other, and we have, you know, created this tremendous imperialist society of the United States and Europe, but and other countries are kind of joining the club. That is very destructive. We don't even, I think, realize how destructive our society is. But we do need to see that because, you know, we don't really have much time left. It's like they were saying, you know, maybe we had 2 or 3 years, or maybe we have 10 years. That's what the UN said, before our environment is degraded to such an extent that we can't change it. So we are in an emergency, not only for COVID, but especially for the environment. So with all of the injustices that have happened up until now, we're going forward towards an even greater one, or even greater many ones. And so we need to find a way of explaining the world that'll let us move out of our habits of oppression. So that is basically the gift economy is the underlying structure of humanity. And it is a structure that is the structure of communication, of right economics, free giving and receiving, of an interaction with nature that is of an epistemology, of understanding the world around us in terms of we receive the gifts of our perception, and the values that we have are based on gifting originally, and we need to continue with those values rather than with the values of exchange and the market that are so egocentric, instead of the gift that will go around and where everybody has a chance and everybody's needs are respected and satisfied rather than exploited and used to control the person that has the need in order to give more to the person that has the money. So do you all want to ask any questions or tell me what you want to know or disagree? Mickey.
I have a question. You know, in my own thinking about gift economy, which, as you know, but others may not know, we have different starting points, but we converge a lot in conclusions. A concept that has been really significant for me is flow of gifting, that it's not just one gift, but all resources flow. The way I think of it is from where they exist, they will flow willingly to where they're needed and then it gets passed along and is part of the flow of life. And I'm curious if you can comment on whether or not that fits with what you are theorizing, and if
Absolutely.
so, how?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't have any objection to that at all. I think it's a great way of expressing it. I think that when you're in a flow in a community, that allows everybody to get their needs met. Mm-hmm. That it's good to have abundance when you're trying to do that rather than scarcity, because if you have scarcity, then some people may not get their needs met, or people have not enough altogether. So flow, I think the gift economy requires abundance to some extent, and it works much better in abundance, whereas the exchange economy requires scarcity and imposes scarcity by creating it, by channeling the gifts to the few out of the collective pot, let's say, and that creates the scarcity. And when there's not enough scarcity to maintain the market as it is, then we have wars to destroy the abundance. And after that, if we don't have enough wars, we also have big expensive elections or other kinds of, let's say, power demonstrations, that big buildings and so forth, jewelry that take the money and the abundance away from the many and leave it frozen in the hands of the few. Right?
Mickey, I'm really glad you brought up the concept of flow. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. And as I hear the two of you go back and forth with this, one of my areas of focus is the how we are invited to make this transition at this time. And it seems to me that more and more what I'm discovering is as we are able to observe what the obstacles are to that flow and remove them, then it allows what is most natural to continue, kind of like the torus. So those, you know, obstacles may be our greed or our fear or our, you know, everything that obstructs. So I love that you brought up flow.
Thank you. Is it okay to ask one more question, Jen?
Sure. Isn't it?
It also relates to this question of obstacles, because I think that one of the big obstacles that I'm discovering, and you know, and others may not know, that I do experiment in gifting a lot. So I learned things in practice also, not just in theory. And one of the obstacles is people have a really hard time receiving without feeling obligated to give. And so I have come to believe that increasing our capacity to receive unconditionally is just as important and more difficult in terms of restoring flow than giving unconditionally. And that this is where the debt, because receiving without giving codes as debt within patriarchal economies, and it filters into even interpersonal relationships. So I'm wondering if you've thought about that and what you have to say about it. I'm really curious to merge our two bodies of work.
I think what we need is this general theory, because without a general theory, we just fall back into people's personal prejudices and how they've been brought up and so forth. So if you're not good at receiving, it may be because your mother told you not that you're not supposed to receive. I remember a really nice young woman peace activist who, you know, I offered her a sandwich and her mother said, she said, my mother told me never to accept any gifts, and she was hungry. And she was at my house. It was really weird. Anyway, people are taught this is mores, you know, it's really a question of habits and what our immediate people that were around us think and do, and how to be respected, you know, because we're not respected at all by the society itself. I mean, the social structure doesn't respect the people that are in it, even if it's called a democracy. But we've learned, or we've believed that we should blame gifting. We should blame people who give to us and be very suspicious because they really might have some kind of an exchange underneath, and sometimes they do, you know. and that receiving means that we're inferior. It doesn't. You know, the whole it's all because, in a way, there's a sort of fail-safe created by the market economy that discredits the gift economy. And it's a way of the market economy trying to maintain itself and doing it successfully by putting the B on every individual. There was, Sherry, did you have your hand up? So can
I did.
I think, yeah.
I think that the challenge is also one of worldview, that it's not just about moving into a practice of gifting. It's about really dealing with the trauma of the shifting from gifting to sacrificing of the woman's body. And I think that that's what the you know, European culture has done. It's shifted the giving, the life-sustaining, life-nurturing central role of the mother into one of sacrifice of the woman's body in many ways. And even in decolonizing our own stories here in Chquabenaquieg, you know, we found that the stories shifted after contact, and that once the missionaries and the European scholars got a hold of those stories, they shifted again even more. And I write about some of that in Sacred Instructions, and I'll write about a lot more of that in Women Rise Wild. But I think that one of the things that's essential is really shifting that mindset that giving is connected to sacrifice. But also I think it's just a basic grounding within a system that has valued exchange and your capacity within that exchange market in determining your place within the caste of the society. That hierarchy, you have to undo all of that thinking. So
yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Somebody's on speakerphone. And the other thing I just wanted to say, like for us, we have our the center of our community, you know, our societies, our communities, is clan mothers. And so for our community, me and my auntie are the clan mothers for the Bear Clan, and for the Crow Clan. And so you know, when you have at the center of your society clan mothers, then women are valued differently, and it's not the same out in the dominant culture. So it's not all societies that devalue women, but those that are based on those patriarchal principles. So for us, the shift in our minds is not as severe because we've been living according to those principles, our principles of Alabizu and Mama Bizu, the value of enough, are all centered around having exactly what we need in order to live dignified, safe, secure lives based on what's given to us by the mother. So.
Yeah, I think I was trying to say, by saying a general theory, I was trying to say worldview as well. That's what I really was trying to mean. But maybe since we're the Europeans, we need a theory, because you can't get to the worldview except through some kind of academic way. Let's see, there's Joan.
I think also Liliana, do you still have a question or a comment?
I do, but I want this flowing. I don't want to interrupt it. It was going to throw it off, so I pass.
Oh, okay.
So Joan, right?
Yes, Joan Marler. You're on mute, Joan.
Can't hear you.
Okay. I'm so glad to hear Sherry speak about the transition within the Native communities between the pre-contact time and all of those different changes that took place reflected in the stories, reflected in all aspects of society, because that is a view of how these things work, how that transition works, and how horrific it is, and what are the patterns of that change and the effects of it. And I definitely want to read more of your work and hear more about that. My work has to do right now with focusing on the transition that took place in Europe, because the transition between what Maria Gimbutas called Old Europe, the sustainable societies of Old Europe, and that transition, which she called the collision of cultures, with the shift to patriarchal societies. And it's very fascinating in terms of tracking that transition and being able to tune into it with more data and more understanding of how on a micro level that took place. The new DNA work, the ancient DNA work, is revealing some amazing details around that. For instance, when the steppe tribes came from the steppe and invaded Old Europe, what the genetics showed is that there was quite a bit of massacring of the old European societies and taking the women into the steppe societies, basically abducting them and forcing them to function within the societies. The women brought their skills, brought their whole experience of what it meant to create these amazingly rich society of exchange, of the gift society, and then suddenly having to have what they created for the health and well-being of these balanced societies to be utilized for the purposes of male dominance. And it's just right there to be seen. And I think it's very important for people of European origin and everybody who has suffered under the template of that domination to understand that transition, because we absolutely must go the other way and change it. And so I'm very interested in hearing more about that, and also from everyone who has a piece of that puzzle, because we've got to sort this thing out.
I'm just going to jump in, Liliana, if that's okay. I wanted to just tag onto this notion. There were several things that came up. I read all of the articles and sort of looked at all the pieces together. And Jen and Sherry, I'm glad that you brought up this idea of a new worldview in terms of the gift economy, not just a theory, because my note says a gift worldview system, because nature or the ecological system cannot be viewed as a theory. It can't be viewed as an abstract from the point of view if mothers were at the center, where everything is in relationship to everything else. And Mickey, it's so interesting because my note says gift economy as a dynamic flow, life that is rooted in relationships where a need is the energy that shifts the dynamic balance of resources from the originating point to where the need is met. Okay, so I think I was just picking up on future ideas that were coming forward. And then this idea that there's this dynamic balance, that I think of that in terms of weather systems, that, you know, we have this worldview and we have this dynamic balance that happens with the resources, but until we can get to a gift worldview, we're still looking at only part of, we're only languaging part of what needs to shift. And I just want to also say to what Sherry brought up in terms of being colonized as a people, my primary work is actually decolonizing in the Filipino communities and diaspora, and now linked to the women who are in the Philippines. And our colonial aspects were different layers. Our culture, however, is very adaptable. And it is this notion of the self and the other, or the self is interrelated to the other as part of a natural worldview, that the whole world is our relationship. In the indigenous cultures experience plants, animals, rocks, nature itself, the stars, as being part of our relations. And this dynamic balance where the women and children are at the center because they are the future, because they are actually the emergent place in which all culture arises from. It doesn't arise from adult male except to oppress it and control it. It actually arises at the center like a tube torus, which I heard Mary Claire talk about. And changes come ever slowly in an adaptable way to an environmental relationship based on needs that could be both physical, emotional, psychological, and visionary. Spiritual, deep, deep connection in the blood. Yes, Jen.
I just wanted to say that if you all have read part of what I've written, and I was talking about Alfred Sonratel, who talked about the exchange abstraction and how the interaction of exchange abstracts our thought processes, and it separates us. So the relational economy that is the gift economy is broken by the exchange economy and takes people out of relationship and puts them in relation to things rather than to each other. And so that's the one big good reason not to live in an exchange economy, and to try to capture the kind of relational economy that we had before, that everybody had before.
I want to check in with Liliana. Does your comment come into the flow now, or?
Well, yeah, it's actually coming into the flow right now because I read the paper on money and the construction of the inner self. And I just wanted to ask Jen to expand a little bit on that. What is it that actually the concept of the inner self does in relationship to money? If you could expand a little bit on that, but
Yeah, well, I'm still studying this myself, but it's that abstraction from the kind of self that you have when you're in community and you become an abstract competitive self. And that, I think that's the patriarchal self. It came, this guy Seaford sees it at the end of the Iliad. And last night it just happened that I was watching TV and they had the movie of the Iliad on there. And they were so warlike. I mean, they were just, it was all about war. It was really terrible with all of their, their spears, which were total phallic symbols, I thought, and competing with each other. So they had, instead of a gift economy, a gift exchange, they have an exchange of violence and vengeance. And that's also something that, and plunder, that's also something that Seaford said. And then when money comes in, then they have this self that is kind of made in the image of money. And that takes them away from the war and vengeance and reprisal kind of self, or plunder, and then gifts from the plunder and so forth. That was the basis of their social interaction. And and that makes it into a kind of abstract self that now is the one that we have in patriarchy more than anything. So, I mean, I think that's how we have these dominant men like Trump and everybody, is that they believe that they themselves have this sort of abstract thing, and that justifies them in doing a lot of, you know, terrible stuff, and they need to keep it going. And I don't think women really have that. I think women are a much more interactive, even if we are part of the exchange economy. I think that because we start out without having to differentiate ourselves from the mother as gender, we still remain in the gift economy longer, and the kind of self we have is still more based on gifting and unilateral gifting than the male one is. That's my part of my rant.
It's a good one, Jen. Liliana, does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm gonna, Mary Claire, is this a good time for you? And then Anina, I see your hand up. So Mary Claire.
Well, I want to keep it brief because I see what Sherry just posted, and I think maybe my observation and question is kind of a segue for what she's bringing into the chat. And because you started it, Sherry, with this, bringing up this world view, and then it's been commented on a few different times. And I'm thinking back, Jen, to how you brought forth the excerpts from Seaford's piece on the abstraction, and the piece in particular that you talked about are not having a word for an organ of perception. And I'm smitten currently with this idea that the new, quote, discovered largest organ in the body, newly discovered, is the fascia, which is the in-between, which is the greatest organ of sense perception. And in my own personal work, where language was abstracted from the sensual, and also where monetization came in, was where this middle place, the matrixial, the middle, was squeezed out of Parmenides and the pre-Platonic, and squeezed out into Western philosophy with Plato and Aristotle. And so this piece of the abstraction that's linguistic and how we have come on. So I would actually, I said I was going to keep it brief, but because I think it connects to what Sherry's bringing back up here, which is how we've separated out ourselves. So it's this remembering in all directions that fascinates me in the in-between space.
Anine, and then I'll go to Sherry. Anine, you need to unmute.
I can't hear you.
Okay. Better? Yeah?
Yes.
You hear me now? Yeah? So I would like to link in the concept of worldview. What I really liked and loved so much when I started to study matriarchy and discovered that in matriarchy, gift economy is a basic concept. What I really loved was the sacredness of the worldview. The view that matter was sacred, that all the things we see and we experience and perceive are sacred. And I think this is a basic thing which misses in patriarchy. So when I really link it to my own experience now in COVID-19 and the seclusion and all these lectures and things which cannot go on, I must say that I really am confronted with my inner self and feel that I'm so grateful for life itself, for the sacredness of life, for the air I breathe, for the chair I'm sitting on, the people I meet, the work I can do. even the word gives me so much pleasure. So this gratefulness for the sacredness of life is really is my abundance. And I feel more and more abundance the older I get and the more silence I feel around me. That is what I wanted to add. And I would like to ask you, Jen, what is your worldview? What is the basic concept of the worldview?
I'm not really sure if we all mean the same thing by worldview. I think, but I think that the world is based on giving and receiving, whether that is material, that is if it's like happens among electrons, or if it happens among plants and the nurturance of the plants, or if it happens, among people, or if it happens between us and the earth, or if it happens in our brains between the neurons and the places where they go and come from. I really think that the gift is the basis of it all. And that through that is this kind of consciousness comes. So that's it, I think.
Connectedness, the connectedness.
Yeah, maybe it does make, the gift makes the connections everywhere. And we interrupt
Great.
that by
Thanks.
exchange.
Sherry, are you ready? Do you want to share a little bit more about what you were doing in the chat?
I'm happy to do that, but I would also like to first offer the opportunity to anyone else to have the time that has not spoken yet, because I've already spoken once. So if at the end there's time and people want to hear more about that, I'm happy to do that, but I don't want to take up time since I've already talked.
Perfect. That's generous. Anyone else?
There's somebody with their hand, Mary.
Who? Constance, I saw your hand up.
Yes, yes. This is such a huge step, changing, it's like changing in midstream. And so I was wondering if there are, Jen, if there are like little steps on how to initiate the gift economy in everyday acts and relationships with others. I don't know if that's possible because it's you're having a shift in consciousness of, what is sacred and important. And in our society, women really are a commodity. So little steps of there. I don't know. This is.
I think we need to look at everything we're doing in those terms. And so, breathing in is a gift to us, and breathing out is a gift to the trees around us. But also, everything is really based on gifting that's not exchange. So when you have those two ideas in your mind, you can see which is one and which is the other. And I know Mickey has done a lot of work on this, and she would probably be able to answer what all of the experiments and stuff that she's done on it. But I think well, now I'm lost what I was going to say, but go ahead. Let's see. There are many different ways of gifting, and we just need to transform what we are doing already and see it and look at it and see if it's a gift or not, and see if it's an exchange or not. So those things I think can be very helpful at the base. But if it's actual trying to create an experimental gift economy to live in, then that's a whole different kettle of fish. You need to actually, make a community. And there are many communities out there, but usually don't have the maternal idea.
Perfect. I just wanted to say hello and let everyone know that Elena has joined us. Do you want to unmute for a minute, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mary Condren. So Elena, can you just say hello?
Hi everybody. Sorry for being late. I just popped in the conversation, so I'm a bit lost. The only thing I find I could say something about it is this the gift economy that I can't separate from the idea of community and practicing gift economy without a community is very hard. And what I hear from people who are dedicated to common good and they do a lot of work both politically and socially for the benefit of all, which is generally done in a gift economy mode, so gifting. After a lot of years that they've been dedicating in this mode, they feel very frustrated. So it's really something that I have to when we talk about gift economy, I think the community is very much part of it. Otherwise, it's very hard to practice. And as Jen explains it, it looks more like a sacrifice, or it's perceived as a sacrifice, and that is what is holding also people back from practicing gift economy, I think.
Thanks,
well,
Elena.
The reason for that, though, is it's not the fault of the gift economy. It's the fault of capitalism and patriarchy, the context that the gift economy is trying to be experimented within. So.
Yeah, I definitely I understand that, and my reference is to shifting systems. Like I was raised in communism, and then after the independence of Croatia, it became liberal, you know. So a lot of people are still in this common good mindset, and they act for the common good. But then on the shifting platform, on the shifting system, on the pure capitalism, well, there was the state capitalism, but here is a free market capitalism. Even those idealistic values of community just have no place. So people who engage in this action, of course, face the capitalism and face the individualism and liberalism, and but you know, they are punished in a way for doing this and for practicing gift economy, and their frustration is very great, and they feel miserable after a lifetime of gifting, you know. So I would really like to find a way how to avoid that, because more and more, if the capitalism is getting stronger, and it looks like, you know, I don't know if it's the last moments of capitalism, I hope so, but definitely it's very strong, very violent, and very selfish. So it's very hard to practice gift economy and try to still preserve those values. Of course, it's not. I don't think it's a fault of gift economy. Gift economy, it's something that it's into human beings, but the result of practicing it is capitalism. It's very hard life.
Thanks, Elena. Mary?
Well, thank you for inviting me, and it's lovely to see everybody's face. I've been communicating with a lot of people for some time and had never met most of you. I want to go back to one of the first contributions that was made about the flow, and also related to worldview, because my profession is as a theologian. I have no idea what that means, but I struggle with it all the time. And one of the things, just to go back to, if I may, just to go back to one of the papers that Jen offered us from the very beginning. She's speaking about Achilles, and Achilles isolated. If I can get it up now on my system, because, oh gosh, it's gone again. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. Excerpts from Money. Okay, I'll take it up. Achilles, at the end, the question arose, Jen, and I isolated this. Achilles isolates himself from such interpersonal relations and from their material embodiment. His identity is now shaped not at all by the relations of honor embodied in gifts from mortals, but rather by the unspecified honor provided by Zeus. This transcendent abstract honor seals his social isolation, in which his invisible Suki, or whatever that is imagined both in terms of economic value and as nevertheless transcending it. I was very struck by that passage because I thought it really was making a major kind of a theological statement about when the deity is reified or petrified, as it is in monotheism and in the religions of people like Zeus and whatever, then the flow has to be interrupted. The flow is interrupted because it's all going in the one direction, into monotheism. And, you know, in the work I'm trying to do at the moment, I'm writing on Bridget as a kind of an international language of divinity, because her gifts are in relation to poetry, healing, and smith work. Smith work, I understand, is the relationship between nature and culture. I'm trying to also explain the difference between panentheism, henotheism, polytheism, and monotheism. And it seems to me that, you know, panentheism, which is energy, which is the life force, will promote the flow, whereas monotheism interrupts it and stops it. And so the other thing is in relation to sacrifice, because before I started my Bridget book, I should have finished my book on sacrifice, and of course never did. But I was always impressed by a woman called Nancy Jay, an anthropologist, and she wrote a brilliant book called Throughout Your Generations Forever, where she claimed that sacrifice is birth done better on a higher, more spiritual level than ordinary women do it. Now, the statement is overgeneralized, but I noticed, and I keep track of the ways in which the words sacrifice are used. And in the COVID discourse over the past 3 months, sacrifice is used all the time. We have sacrificed this, we have sacrificed the other. And it's used as a major tool of legitimation, legitimizing some of the most horrific things, which is, you know, hugely problematic. And the final thing I wanted to say was something about the question of fertility, because those of us who work in feminism and divinity are always accused of being, you know, fertility goddesses or fertility whatever, but the real fertility has to do with the accumulation of money, because, you know, the 5 or 6 richest people in the world have become monotheistic in an economic sense, in the sense that all of the energy is directed in that direction. And it's never named for what it is, but that is the fertility myth of our generation, and the fertility, and it underlies the many of the discourses of economics, and also legitimates the concentration of wealth in the hands of the few to the detriment of the others. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Jen, did you want to comment to any of that?
I think Mary is really onto something, talking about sacrifice, and I've always really been interested in what she said about that, because I think it is it's a distortion of the gift, just like exchange is. It's a different kind, but it is another distortion of the gift. And it helps in maintaining male control, I think, both, and really helps in war and stuff where men, you know, give their lives for their country and all that. And, you know, they're not, I think it's a fascinating thing, but I don't think I know enough about it. I've never really been able to grasp what I think is behind it all. Though I do think that it has something to do with menstruation, with men's envy of menstruation and shedding blood.
Somebody's asked me to type in the name of the book I mentioned, but I can't type and be involved at the same time because of
on the side.
So I'd be happy to send it on through email. Is that okay?
Yeah. But
perfect.
There's something at the bottom says chat, and you can click on that, and that opens up the sidebar.
I know, but every time I go to it, it flicks into something else. So
could you just repeat the name then? Just say it again.
Okay, Nancy J. Throughout Your Generations Forever. She wrote it about 20, 30 years ago, and some of it has been heavily criticized. I've written a number of articles on sacrifice on my own academia page, which is a little bit more up to date maybe, complementary to Nancy's work, but also working sideways from another perspective.
Thank you, Mary. And someone has entered it into the chat already for us. And just a note of, so that anyone who has to leave, this session is being recorded and it's being sent out to all of us who are on the session. So if you miss something or want to re-listen to something, you can do that. And Diane, I wonder if I can ask you if you would save the chat so that, and anyone can actually save the.
Mary, could you give us your website name?
I don't have a website, but if you just type in Mary Condren, Trinity College Dublin, my academia page comes up, and many of my articles are on there. The latest one has to do with, I don't have on the website because I can't, because the publishers have said no. It's on the Dew of Mercy. That's D-E-W. The Dew of Mercy used to be the sign of fruitfulness and abundance and regeneration. And I'm contrasting that, the dew of mercy versus the blood of sacrifice. Because in patriarchal political discourse, the societies are regenerated through the sacrifices of war. And, you know, as Lucy Regara would be saying, you know, history had its gods and, you know, our nature had its gods and they were sexualized. Who are the gods of history? And we never asked that question, you know, who are the gods of history? And the gods of history have been created through sacrifice and underpin and legitimate kind of violence that permeates our economy.
Can we all just take a minute and thank Mary for all the organizing work that she's done and all the wrangling she had to do to untangle all of that organizing in the last, 6 months. I greatly appreciate you, Mary, and I want to thank you for your efforts and just acknowledge you while we're all here. So thank you.
Thank you. It was a privilege to do it, and I'm sorry it hasn't worked out this time, but there will be another time, I am quite sure. I look forward to welcoming you to Ireland in the future when this current dilemma is over.
Thank you, Mary. I think Vanessa had a question. Is it still?
Yeah, so actually I feel that my question flows between with what Elena was sharing around the challenges that she was bringing to the conversation, and then with what Mary shared, and a little bit of what's moving through the chat. And in full disclosure, I'm honestly pretty new to gift culture, gift economy concepts, but my background is psychology. So the question that I'm finding just that it's rolling through my mind, and curious, Jen, if you have your own thoughts about this, or perhaps anyone else here, is, you know, how might the psychological state or the intrinsic place from which someone may gift, how does that perhaps affect, or how might that intrinsic place have different permutations in the expression of the way gift culture, gift economy happens? And I'm just coming from a place of like, if someone, the obvious thing that comes to my mind, if someone is giving to receive, there's a distortion, I think, that happens. But yeah, just curious about thoughts around the intrinsic place of giving, and maybe what's required or what could be supportive of something that is maybe more whole person and whole community centered. So yeah, those are my thoughts right now that I'm curious to hear about.
Well, I think we all live in a gift economy when we're babies, because we are nurtured unilaterally by our mothers, and that gives us that model to follow. And we have mirror neurons that let us experience what the mother is feeling when she's giving and what it is for her to give. And so we learn that within ourselves to follow that model. And there are also other ways that kinetically we identify with the mother and so forth. So we understand giving and receiving when we're little, and we can reverse that. We can, as babies, we can also give. So as we get a little older. Well, when we're about 3, we begin to understand exchange. That is, giving in order to get back, or quid pro quo, which is the mode of our economy that we are living in. And that is ego-oriented instead of other-oriented. And so that is the beginning of our downfall in a way, because our whole society is based on that. And yet as individuals, we still maintain the gift ways within us underneath that. And we can still do gifting, and we do it as adults. When we're doing gifting as adults, we are still using the same thing we learned as children. It's that same model. And it works. It creates human relations, whereas exchange separates people and destroys human relations. And so in our society, we have a kind of a mixture of this. And people do give because they know other people have needs. They want to satisfy the other person's needs. And I believe even language is done in another other-oriented way. So we keep ourselves in a gifting mode through language. But exchange and the market and money have taken over everything. And so this gifting way is kind of interwoven with the exchange way to the detriment of the gift way, because you always have to be careful. Is that person going to try to cheat me, even though they're giving to me? They're just, there's a way of discrediting gifting that happens, that the exchange economy does in order to maintain control. I know it doesn't have its own brain, but it does do this in a very capillary way. It hides, the exchange hides gifting, and there is the way that looks like it's equal exchange, but underneath there's so often is a gift is given, like in surplus value, surplus labor, the extra work that people do is taken over and given to the capitalist. And that is a gift. I mean, it's given free. It's not willingly given, but it is extorted. It's extracted. And the same with the gifts of nature. They're all being extracted and made to flow towards the capitalist at the top. So they're made to flow away from need instead of towards needs. And so we have this morass of gifts mixed up with exchange. And, but exchange is always winning. And gifting is either hidden or it's looked at often in a individualistic way as your morality. I mean, it's like a moral choice to give, and it's not an economic choice. It's not part of a paradigm that needs to be practiced by everybody. It just seems to be being good. And the ideology of the market is really against being good. It couldn't care less. So we never win with morality. We need a bigger picture. We need the world view based on gifting, and that explains our humanity in terms of gifting and not in terms of making money and being the most powerful, which is a sort of a patriarchal explanation of who we are. Even Homo sapiens, even just saying we're the knowing being, we don't have a clue we're not the knowing being. We don't know that we're doing gift giving all the time, and that's what is making the whole profit thing work. And so we're in a grand confusion, really. And we believe a bunch of wrong things. And like they say, that this is the wrong narrative that's taking us to the end of the world. So that's why we need to restore the whole gift paradigm and the whole gift way of thinking. So yeah.
Jen,
Could I just mention,
let me just do a time check because I want to just really be responsible for people's time. A little bit an hour and almost an hour and 20 minutes. So we didn't actually fix an end time. So I don't want to rush anyone, but there are some people who may have need to actually flow in a different direction. So Jen, how are you feeling and how is everyone else feeling? So
I'm fine.
Okay, so just again, the session is being recorded, and if you miss part of the end, however long we go, the recording will be sent to you so you can catch up on what's happening. We're also going to be doing this again next week. So you can make a list of questions or send them to us or Jen directly, and that can come up in our next meeting. So I just wanted to put that out there if you needed to move on. And one person actually said they might be turning off their camera so that they can actually do some work, but they're going to be listening. So, all right. Now, who was that was actually speaking up? Because I want to turn the floor back to you.
I have a question.
Oh, hi. Yeah, just briefly, I have to go shortly myself anyway, but I just wanted to mention an author to Jen, Ian McGilchrist. He's a neuroscientist. I can give you the references separately, but he has a very interesting discussion about the origins of language. And he proposes that, you know, music came first, and music originally obviously was all about communal belonging and integration. It was all communal music that was always done until quite recently in our society, where music has become a kind of specialized that if you're one of these performers, you get to perform, nobody else does. So he tracks the development in the brain of music into poetry, which is kind of spontaneous expression and kind of gift giving. And prose came later, he says. And then according as language was became more abstract and became less embodied, it was more disconnected from feelings, if you like. So it enables a lot more manipulation, just as you're saying, in the exchange economy, and also, you know, in advertising and so on, the manipulation of language. So he's saying that it all depends on how we use language, because if we use language as an expression, you know, if you like, of feeling between two people or whatever, or in sympathy, that's one part of the brain is being more activated than the other. Whereas if you use language to lie, which language can do much better than the body can do, the body doesn't really lie, but language can lie, then you're using the controlling, manipulative part of the brain, you know, what you might use to, you know, pick up a stick or something like that. So it
Hear you anymore.
I think we lost Leah.
Sorry about that. I got cut off, but I said what I needed to say anyway.
Perfect. Thank you, Leah.
Can I reply just quickly?
Of course.
I think that we've also looked at language as self-expression instead of as satisfying the other person's needs. So we see it as like Noam Chomsky does, as generating sentences without realizing the act to be related to whatever it is we're talking about, and we have to give them words that do that. And so by looking at language as an interpersonal connection or a gift, I think it explains it better than it does just as self-expression or some kind of a general statement.
Thanks, Jen. I think Angela had Angela Miles.
Angela M. I wasn't sure whether we had come to a lull and it was, you know, but anyway, yeah, it's really exciting to be here. Thanks everybody, and to see people I know and meet new people. You know, hearing sacrifice as a distortion and an appropriation and a denial of giving, and hearing morality as absolutely masking and refusing gift. I mean, the whole, it strikes me, the whole of the construction of patriarchy and a deep, deep denial of our humanity and our connection and our relationships and what we all grow up in necessarily or survive in, and what really defines us as human, is such a major, huge project, and so fragile and so violently imposed and supported all around us. And when people talk about how can we give, or how can we do it in capitalism and in patriarchy, I mean, if women give, we're despised, and yet we're expected to do it, and what we do it is ignored. And that's such a small part of it in terms of, you know, if to me, that worldview, that picture, that the way we see what we do every day it's huge, but it's very small, it's very specific. Seeing that is a very practical, necessary piece. It's not like we've got this whole thing, and then how do we get practical? It's so practical to refuse to see things. You know, we're told that the real social relationships are exchange relationships, and before we get into exchange, it's sort of prehistorical, pre-social. It's a lie. It's the biggest lie in the world. Like, so that's the, and it's important. I couldn't agree, you know, to me, relationships are the connection, and the relationships to each other, to ourselves as human beings, so we're not alienating ourselves every step of the day. And so the idea of, okay, how do we get to the practice? We have to do so much of it, even just to be in the world and try and just see the way we're, all of our and everybody else's humanities, and we're set up against each other. So, you know, it's been really moving, the sort of the extent of this thing, and how many different places there are to start, and how much we all, how much people here, you know, you lot have to offer, in that is really, it's amazing, which leaves us still with the question of how do we change it, of course. But I think it's, I've just been really struck. I mean, I've known it before, but with the hugeness of it all and how it's so, in every small way, our humanity is denied at every step of the way. And women's particularly, but men's is constructed meanwhile in such a non-human way that it's big. So I don't know what I'm really, anyway, what can I say? I think there's so many fronts we can be working on, and what can I, sorry. Yeah, that's it. That's just, it's big, very big.
Thanks, Angela. I would say everyone in their own area is working on their own front. I mean, that's really the way that we can shift it, is everyone needs to do their piece. So thanks for all of that. Jen, did you?
We need to connect them to each other, because unless you have a bigger picture, you have everyone by themselves is much more diminished, and it's having to create that front each time by yourself against the exchange economy. You can't do it. It doesn't happen. Like Elena was saying, you become you sacrifice yourself. This is what happens. It's a setup.
I have a question for Jen. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah.
So Jen, I of course appreciate the idea of gift economy. I'm sure it works. I'm sure it works. I believe in it. But being myself an activist, I'm literally obsessed with the idea to dismantle, destroy the market, because the market, patriarchal market, is the problem. Now, the market needs to create scarcity to work. So I think perhaps the main thing we can do is to create abundance wherever it's needed. The main way to give is to create abundance where needed. I'm just asking to you, is this so wrong?
I couldn't hear everything you're saying. Your voice is breaking up. But are you asking me that? That it's abundance. It's much easier with abundance to be able to do a gift economy, and the market keeps us from having the abundance. But we could create pockets of abundance, and some of us have tried to do that in various ways, and it has worked to some extent. But I think what happens is just it's like the question of morality. You know, people that are trying to do gifting and don't succeed think it's their fault or think something is wrong with gifting. And in fact, it's too hard to do it. You have to realize that you can't do it, at least in a lifestyle way, in the way of maintaining yourself. So you can do it maybe partially because you have a job, and then you can help other people and bring them into some kind of an economic, give some gifts in that direction. And all of our gifting is really being siphoned off by charities that are, asking for money all the time. And we also maybe want to give to them. And it is one way that people are helping save the children and all of those different organizations. But it just maintains the bigger picture the way it is. So we don't have access to abundance usually. And so we have to find other ways of gifting. One is talking. We can talk abundantly still. We can also, you know, read. We can share ideas. We can dance, or sing. There are various things that we can do that are gifts that we don't name as gifts. And I think like the consciousness raising groups that women had, finally they were sharing their ideas and their needs and their solidarity. That was a whole gift. Those were kind of like gift bubbles that were happening back then. And it's just we don't recognize it because we give it other names. But it is happening. It's throughout. But we don't. It needs to be colored in a certain way. We need to color all the gifts pink or something, like, so we can see that what they are. And we need to know, in a sense, we need to realize what a difficult situation we're all in, and that we've been given the wrong answers by patriarchy, and there is another way, and that other way has to do with basing our thinking on gifting. Thinking is based on gifting also. So we don't have, I wonder really if we even have anything that's not gifting or a perversion of gifting. So what do we need abundance? We don't have it usually.
It's there. The abundance is being
we can give and
Can I comment on that business of scarcity and abundance? Just briefly, honestly, this time.
Let Frida talk.
Okay, here we have stacking of Frida and Angela Dolmich have been waiting, and then Angela Miles.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to say that I'm looking at things that are trends and emerging in the culture that would seem to be connectable to gift economy. And one of them I'm seeing right now is this defund the police movement. And it's very interesting. I just read something about Confessions of a Bastard Cop or something like that. I posted it on my Facebook page. And he's a former policeman who's talking about how bad and useless the police are. But then he talks about all the things that people actually need that police are called to deal with that they're not any good at dealing with, that they're just there to so trained to be violent. And so he starts listing, I mean, one of the things is that we're not starting from a perfect economy. We're starting with a society that has been terribly abused. You know, so many people don't have even the basic things that they need, including their mothering has been taken away. And so that he's proposing, well, that the public funds this abundance that really is just created by the central banks anyway, it is all going into this militarization thing, and it should be going to, well, he says social workers and different kinds of things, but there's so many different ways that if people's needs were met, then we wouldn't have nearly as much of this violence to even contend with. And so I'm just saying the moment is here. Maybe it's always here, but there's things coming into public consciousness that where I think the gift economy would be received. I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Frida. Jen, did you want to respond to any of what Frida had to share?
No, I think she's right. Yeah, I think defunding the police is a great idea, but somebody else is going to have to do the jobs, the positive jobs that they did.
Perfect. Angela Dolmich, did you want to unmute?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, I recently now with teaching from the house, we got in touch with some of the indigenous communities, and they were very surprised, or they say that Western women, when they have a child, they put a child in a cot. They don't, the mother doesn't stay with the child. And they basically, they say that for the child, for the development of the child, it's very important that the child keeps close to the mother, and in fact and it eats whenever it's hungry, and it gets the comfort from the mother's body, and that they do that, and they find it very strange that ever since the child is born is separated from the mother. And somehow that brought to my mind when Jen started writing about how boys get separated from their mothers and how boys develop in a different way from girls, and how boys develop into the patriarchal world, and it has always done that way. And I think it would be very interesting to hear Jen talking about the way that boys are separated from their mothers, become images to their fathers, and therefore get into the exchange economy immediately, much quicker than girls. But basically, those who manage the work are men. And so, you talk about the All Boys Club, of which obviously we are living now. I mean, we are the victims now of the All Boys Club, which has to do with Trump and and all that and whatever. I mean, honestly, you can see that Trump is the product of the All Boys Club. So maybe it would be interesting to expand on that, Jen.
Yeah, well, I think that there's Darsha Narvaez has written a lot about indigenous cultures where throughout the history of humanity, especially hunter-gatherer groups, children were raised sort of collectively, and everybody was mothering the children, and the children, in fact, as you said, stayed with their birth mother and always, basically, and were nursed at will, and were basically always in contact with some mothering person. And how different it is in our society where children are left by themselves and they don't have all the kind of stimulation and closeness and nurturing that our species grew up as. That's what developed our brains during the tens of thousands of years of our prehistory. And now we're trying to manage without it, and we're not doing a good job. So, and Darshan Narvaez has written a lot about that. And I think what happens is that in those societies, the maternal model was generalized. Everybody had it, and even the men had it. And now we have men that don't have the maternal model because we divide the genders, and we are assigning opposite genders to males and females. And the female gender is the one that does the gifting. And the male gender is the one that's not supposed to do the gifting because he's not supposed to be like the mother. It's just a confusion at little children that we're putting on our little children. And so then when we have the market is not actually nurturing. It's an anti-gift space. And so boys can be in the market without seeming female or seeming like their mothers. So I think there's a whole, psychological knot back there in our early childhood where boys are pushed out of the nest of the mother and into the neuter world of the market, if you want to call it that, but that has very strong male patriarchal figures, and now particularly those that are maybe even modeled on money, you know, abstract male figures that are powerful, dominant, and rule the world. So, I mean, what is the ideal man for a little boy? Maybe a superhero. I don't know what they are, but it's not a healthy situation. And girls have a lot of the same too now in capitalism, because we're told that nurturing is not a good thing, and women don't want to nurture, and we feel like we're not equal to men because we have to take care of the kids, and it is hard, it is burdensome, and so the gift economy gets discredited again because mothering is so difficult. Anyway, that's kind of what it is. It's like we're abstracting the boys out of the gift economy at a very early age. And there's this one woman that writes about how her son was in the kindergarten, and he was a sweet, loving little boy, but there was a group of boys at 4 years old who called themselves the mean team, and they went around being mean. And he was, you know, not part of it. So she went and interviewed him and found out what they all thought, which was a good way to reveal it. But I think if you went to kindergartens, you'd probably find a lot of that. Even my own grandson, who's now is 7, he's so much into dinosaurs and dinosaurs fighting each other and, you know, that kind of a thing, superheroes. My daughter tries to get him not to do the superhero thing, but the whole video game thing is all based on, you know, machismo for little boys. So what kind of a training do they have, you know, for the gift economy? They have to give it up. They don't give up this masculine identity in order to actually, you know, be a human being.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jen. So Angela, and then Materis.
Marites.
Angela Miles, yeah.
Yeah, just in terms of giving and scarcity, I think it is very true. This world is structured so that none of us can rely on anybody. And even if we have more than we need, we can't afford to give it away because we might then get poor. In other words, we need defensively to not give. But it is, I think there's more giving where people have less and when things are more scarce, because in fact, it becomes much clearer that we really need each other. I mean, that our security really is in each other. When you get, it's not just that, you know, those of us who have sufficient but not abundance, it's difficult to give. But if we don't have sufficient, then we really are right up against what our security is, and it is each other. And I think in some ways that's hopeful. That, I mean, I think of Rebecca Skolnick's work where she looks at what happens in major disasters, and the initial stages, huge things are done by people for each other, and everybody looks after each other really well. And then all the aid agencies and the government airlines come in, and that's broken. That relationship is broken. And so, you know, we are living in a time when everybody's needs are becoming more acute, and there's less, we really have to rely on whatever we can give each other more and more and increasingly. And the point about this moment when we realize really that these structures aren't there to look after us, and some are much more vulnerable, but all of us are vulnerable to power that is not organized in any way that's human. So I think I don't think we have to wait for abundance, or I think that this is a moment to seize, and lots of people are, and things are on the agenda now, like basic income, and in the US, you know, healthcare, and really funding what we need for our needs. So I think you know, this scarcity is also a moment for abundance, as well, for a gift as well as abundance.
Jen, did you want to respond to any of that?
No, I think it's fine. I agree.
Perfect. Marites.
Hi. Yeah, I guess, you know, some people brought up certain things that made me think about, you know, this issue that has been on my mind. You know, I'm thinking of the idea of, you know, gifting is grounded in mothering, like mothering, our experience of receiving gifts from our motherers kind of found us as humans. And then there's this giant distortion and how to tangle out the pieces, especially considering our mothers have also been distorted too in the way that they mother. So, you know, I think about, you know, in psychology, there's like they call them attachment styles, right? So, you know, and I was thinking of like, how does that relate to gifting, where, you know, an anxious attachment is probably someone who hadn't received enough gifts. So they're, you know, anxiously trying to get more. And then there's you know, the avoidant, where, you know, how would I think about that? They're getting gifts that are inappropriate, or, you know, in a disorganized attachment, then you're having, like, you don't have safety. And, you know, I think I've thought a lot about how mothering and mothers are not safe, like in the context in the society that we're in. And I don't know, I guess I don't know that I have a really specific question. I guess I'm just wondering if Genevieve or someone else wants to share their thoughts about that. Like when I think of how to make gifts safe or mothering safe, or, you know, how to tangle out like what is true gifting and mothering versus what is, like, you know, like when we relate to other human beings from a dysfunctional attachment style, and then that's just our way of relating through life. You know, and then we learned that from our mothers. I don't know, everything just seems like really tangled sometimes. So just wondering if people, or Genevieve especially, has ways of kind of detangling that.
Well, I think that the gift economy happens for everybody that survives childhood, because if you don't get your basic needs met, you die. So there are not any people that haven't gotten their basic needs met. That doesn't mean that it was always done very well. So as you say, there are different attachment styles, and sometimes the maternal model was not very good. Maybe mothers left their children crying before they fed them, and that kind of thing. And so, you know, like Darshan Narvaez is saying, people in the societies where humanity grew up, they had constant care as babies. So our minds, our brains were developed in that, I don't know if I want to call it perfect, but that very good way. And we evolved in that way, not in the way in which we were left to cry for hours. And so that the people who don't have care, a basic care when they're little, may have a lot of problems when they get older. And that is, in fact, what they see with that kind of attachment styles. So I just am saying that the gift economy itself is the basic way of surviving of humanity and growing up, and that our institutions are based on it, but we can't see that because our minds are clouded by exchange and the whole market economy and everything that goes with that, with the kind of ego that goes with that. Maybe the ego that goes with that may be the reason why that particular mother had a bad attachment style. So the two things interact all the time, and it is very hard to disconnect them. And that's what we need to, if gifting were looked at as in a more positive way, if we could generalize the idea of the gift economy, and rather than just letting it be mute and having the parasite of the exchange economy on top of it, then we would have reasons to talk to each other and extract ourselves from that parasitic position, if possible. But we don't even know that's happening. So we're kind of hit or miss as to whether we're going to have a good childhood or not. But some do, and they're lucky. But most children survive anyway, and that's because that model is there in the society. If your mother doesn't take care of you, somebody else might. Is that okay?
Thanks, Jen. Check. We have 7 minutes before we hit the second hour that we've been together. So it doesn't feel like it's been 2 hours, but it's pretty amazing. I'm really excited about this conversation. And I want to remind people that we get to do this again next week. So it might be a good idea. Pardon me?
Joan had her hand up. Can we let her?
Yes, of course. Which Joan? Joan Marler.
Joan Marler.
Right. Let's have Joan, and then maybe we'll close and have everyone just write your questions down for next week. And maybe if you'd like to even just submit them ahead of time, maybe Jen can actually address them, or we can address them. And if she doesn't get a chance to, or like I said, we're adjusting as we go along, but this has just been so fruitful. It's been very exciting. So Joan Marler, please take us out. Oh, you're muted. Joan, you're muted.
Okay, I actually have a question for Sherry, because Sherry had mentioned that she's one of the clan mothers, and that there's a traditional structure that's continuing there. How do the clan mothers basically influence the community in order for there to be balance, in order for there to be instruction, or whatever the process is, for people to be brought into sustainability, so that there's not this continual dysfunction that is rampant in patriarchal society and destructive attitudes, particularly between men and women, or any way that it manifests.
Okay, that we can't discuss that in a soundbite, but I'll give you the trailer version and we can talk about it for next week.
Okay.
So essentially, the clan mother structure is set up so that there's clan mothers from each family. So like our family, we have Bear Clan and Crow Clan. And so there's a representative from our family for each of those two clans to be in the clan mother system. And so every family is represented. So that brings balance, first and foremost. And then we have traditional hereditary chiefs and warrior societies. And so, which are all based in service to the community. And they come to the clan mothers with their problems. The community comes to the clan mothers with their problems. And I'm looking at your picture down here instead of looking at the camera, sorry. And then the clan mothers deliberate over, through a process over time on the problem and look at it from every different angle. And then they come up with a solution to the problem collectively. They give that solution to the ones who came to them with the problem. And then it's implemented. And so the balance between the masculine and feminine is honored. So there's no imbalance of structure between, maternal and paternal lines, between men and women, between, those who carry masculine energy and those who carry feminine energy, or, we have 5 different gender identities within our tradition. And so it just maintains the sense of balance, the way that information is disseminated and then manifested out into the community. There's a whole system and structure. And that's my cue. I told Letitia not to call on me because I was going to have to go. But we can pick that up next week if you want. So there's just a balance between the clan mothers and hereditary chiefs. And Mr. Sorry. I love you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Sherry. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Jen, did you want to say anything in closing? You want to open everyone up and everyone can say goodbye after you say a few some words.
I did want to say something because, but I don't see now Frida, if she's still there. Yeah, well, she wrote me and mentioned that that thing that I talked about how there is this similarity between commodity exchange and this like me bridge of where children find their identity with their mother. And what I see that is as a sort of mechanism that we've put onto the commodity exchange and that's broadcast back into our brain from the market. And so that is something that's undermining us all the time and making us look at the things in the wrong way. And so I just wanted to say that that's one of the important things that I think I've come up with. Another is, I think that the thing about Richard Seaford and the self, the abstract self in the image of money. And the other is what I call gift value. That is the kind of value that underlies all the value of the market, but it is something different. So those are the 3 particular things I have to give regarding the exchange economy and the gift economy. We all have that to give. So thank you all so much for being here. I've thought it's very interesting, wonderful to see all of your beautiful faces and hear all of your interesting comments and questions. And I hope we keep doing this for a long time.
Everyone unmute so you can say your goodbyes.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Jen.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Letitia.
Bye, Jen. Thank you.
Bye-bye to all.
Bye. And thank Letitia. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Letitia.
Organizing and-
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
thank you, Letitia.
Yes.
Magnificent.
And Diane, it's so
And Diane,
exciting.
thank you for making it happen.
So again, I just want to remind you, if you have any brilliant ideas, Jen is really, she's so excited. We're so excited that this is happening. So bring your, send your suggestions. Again, we're tweaking the format so that we can have the best experience that we possibly can. Maybe when we get really good at this and got all our ideas flushed out, that we can use some of these little rooms to actually discuss amongst ourselves and then come back and, share, because it's really hard when we're all together. I know we all want to talk. So, but in the meantime, we're open to it. And thank you everyone so much. This is so thrilling. It's very exciting.
So exciting. I'm so excited. Hey.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye, everybody.
Bye. Angela and Frida's iPad are still on. But you can stop the recording. I just wanted to thank you.
Right.
Where are you? You turned your camera. You turned your camera off.
It turns the camera off
Oh, when you stop recording, it turns your camera off?
because I'm the host.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's fine.
now recording, but it'll be a separate file, and I'll just delete this file.
Okay, perfect. I just want to thank you because, yeah, I can't see the hand. All I see is the reactions, but I can't see if there's a some kind of hosting thing. So do you know how to?
Hand that shows up on the corner of the screen when people.
No, it doesn't. Not for me.
Oh, no, it doesn't count for you. Yeah.
You have to actually give me co-hosting permissions.
Right, and that I'll talk to Jen, but it's like each co-host that gets added is a fee of $20 per month. I think it is.
No. No. I don't think so. I think that if you pay for it, that you can have as many hosts as you want on your screen.
Well, you have to pay for it, yes.
Well, actually,
Pro account, and we set it up, and it comes with one host. And then when I added Jen as a co-host, it bumped up the cost. And if I want to add a third host,
I see.
There may be like the ultimate high-end version of this platform that gives you multiple hosts as part of the fee, but the version we have right now requires a fee for each host. But it's not a lot of money.
Okay. Okay. I got it. Because otherwise I can't see, and it's fine if you want to keep, you know, if you want to be in charge of that and just make sure that we're chatting like this. It seemed to work out fine. It's just that I really couldn't see who's, unless they're actually doing this.
Right, I understand.
Okay, and if they're doing this, then the reaction part is actually getting out of sequence. So maybe a good thing to decide is, shall we have people use the hand feature so that they know to go down to the reaction, and then you can actually stack them?
I think there'll be some people who can't manage that, as we've seen. Some people are more technologically challenged than others, but we can certainly encourage it, and I could get the instructions off the Zoom help site, and we could email it to everybody on that email list. So they would at
okay,
least
great. Yeah.
on how to do it. But like just asking people to talk about themselves and then hand it off to somebody else was a problem for people. Like at the beginning, when you wanted people to introduce themselves, you know.
Right. That happens in just a general natural circle. But you know that when you give people instructions, they generally follow them. So I'm trying to get a structure that says we would prefer, you know, if you want to talk, raise your little hand, because there's too many screens and one of us might not be able to see you, but we'll always be able to see the hand.
Right.
So that means that you'll have to be in charge of stacking them for me so that I know who's next.
Yes.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Okay.
I'm
All
just
right.
suggesting that some people will find it difficult to figure out how to raise the hand, even with instructions.
You know, I've been on calls with a lot of people where there are thousands of people, and it hasn't seemed to be a problem because through the chat and the other thing, it's not a major issue. They can figure out one or the other, and then they can also unmute. But the idea is so that we have some kind of a flow that we're all together and it's not just a free-for-all.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And then, okay, cool. Well, that's good to know. That's interesting. I had just assumed because I've been on so many calls with other people and they've all had co-hosts, so I've never really even thought about it being an issue. But there you have it. Now I learned something new.
Yeah, here, I'll send you, not that you care, but I'll send you the link to how.
No, that's okay. I'll look it up because I have all those little things.
But if you look at the pricing, it says like the price per month per host.
I think it's okay. I'll definitely take a look at that because if is the low end where you have 100 people, because I don't think they assume that you only have one host when you have 100 people in your room.
They don't assume it, but they make you pay for each host.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Pro level is $14.99 a month per host. So if you have 2 hosts, then it's $30 a month. If you have 3 hosts,
I see. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Definitely. All right.
It's not a ton of money, so.
No, well, it still is. It's a good idea because I've been on calls where they've had 6 hosts. And so, you know, that just is saying to me, well, is that because of course they have, you know, they're expecting thousands of people on their calls. And they have people who actually work in the background where somebody's actually reading the chat and somebody's, you know, watching the screen, and they're actually talking to each other. Because I'm on, you know, these different communities that are trying to develop new soft technologies and communities coming out of COVID. So there's, you know, 6,000, 8,000 people who are actually involved, and they're not all on the screen at the same time, but it's a community of people who are coming in and out, and they have usually, you know, hundreds of people on the calls, if not thousands.
Right.
So yeah, that's good to know. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for all of that. And I really appreciate everything that you do for this part of it, because Jen is so happy now.
Yeah. So I guess Saturday will just be a normal chat.
Yeah, Saturday's going to be the regular OM.
Right. Okay, well, I will email you the chat here in a minute.
Okay, no worries. I'm just so thrilled that she was happy.
Yeah, that was good. Were you involved in the Ireland thing that was supposed to happen?
Yes. Well, I was just involved in participating. Okay. I wasn't involved in the organizing. Okay. But yeah. No, I'm sad about that. But I think Jen said she was going to try to do something online, like have an online summit.
Right. We haven't talked about it in detail. I guess I need to prompt her to talk about it so we can figure it out when and where, how she wants to do it.
Exactly. What her opportunity is to do it. Yeah, because a summit is, well, the way they do it is pretty sequential. And they use, I think in my Zoom class, they said the features that they had set up for their summit was simply a webinar. They did a webinar session. So it wasn't a meeting session, which meant that some of the, yeah.
A separate Zoom plan that you can buy for webinars.
Yeah.
I think it's $40 a month per host. So
yeah. So it's quite, it's different.
For something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's, anyway, so that's exciting. So yay. All right, Diane, thanks so much for everything.
Yeah, you too. Have a great day.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.